What's up, YouTube? This is Brandon at the Movies here, bringing you guys a new movie review. Today I'm reviewing Joker, Folie, ou Deux, or Joker 2, which stars Joaquin Phoenix, Lady Gaga, Brendan Gleeson, Catherine Keener, and a few others. And it's directed by Todd Phillips, who did direct the first film as well. If you guys don't know who Todd Phillips is, he actually is the one that started off like Road Trip, Old School, and eventually went to do the Hangover trilogy. So now we're back. Joker 2, which a lot of people were not expecting. But because it did make $1 billion, because that first Joker movie is really good, it's thought provoking. It was a mixed bag. Obviously, the height, the craziness that involved with that movie, just in terms of like people thought that people were going to inflict violence because of that movie, was insane. And it still ended up doing $1 billion. I'm impressed. And originally the studios were like, we didn't want to do the movie, and just nuts. But Joker 2 was something I think Todd and Joaquin did not want to do unless they had a good script, a good story, and a good, jumping off point to get to. Obviously, they thought this was good enough. And I think, and look, obviously, if you look at the numbers in terms of the critical rating, it is just dropped today. Which, again, don't go to Rotten Tomatoes. What you should do is read reviews, get the ideas of what the thought process on, and ultimately, when you watch the movie, ultimately it comes down to what you ultimately think. Now, most people are probably going to dislike this movie, and I get where that's coming from in terms of certain things. I got to see this on Monday night. It was an IMAX screening. It was fully packed. It wasn't. I mean, I should not be surprised, but so really, this is about Arthur's now in the Arkham Asylum, and he's on trial. They wanna get him for murder. They want to put him on the they want to execute him, pretty much. And it's about him, they're if the person that killed those 6 people in the first movie or the 5 people, that killed him, that he killed, was that the Joker or was that Arthur? And that's what the movie really goes throughout the film. You get to see Arthur's mind, and then he gets to meet Lee in the Arkham Asylum, and she pushes for him to be Joker, like, you are Joker, and they have a really good relationship. So getting into the performances, particularly, I think Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga as Lee and Arthur do a really good job at working well together and having this chemistry that, he feels like he's finally found someone that loves him, and Lee's gets to be with the person that she's idolized and whatnot, but they really have this really nice chemistry. It really, they really bounce off really well each other. And then also when you get the musical elements, it's really nice and they have fun. It's really, really cool to see. They're terrific in the film. The cinematography, the way this movie's shot, just the technical stuff here, it's just incredible to look at. I honestly think it's probably, for me, I think it's actually better looking than, just by a bit better looking. Now, stylistically, with the musical elements, maybe not as stylistic. Maybe you would like musical elements, but I think they weren't trying to stylistic certain elements. There's certain shots when they start on music. There's a scene in the trailer where there's a spotlight that's on Joaquin, and he's sitting in a chair, and I love the look at that. That looked incredible. Just anything, just being in Arkham and how everything looks. It's incredible looking. They did a really terrific job on that. Just love it. I just like how this does continue on from the first one. It deals with the themes of mental health and whether he had 2 personas and, things like that. I did really like. You get to bring back a couple of characters from the first film, and one of the more of the emotional moments is really good. Um, and it really gets to a point where that's where there's a scene in the movie that changes where you're thinking this movie's going, and it goes in a way I think definitely not everyone. It just sounds like no one liked where this went, especially the very ending scene. Ugh. I'm not going to, no spoilers. I'm not spoiling this because I don't think that's, obviously, one, I don't like doing that to it. It's obviously not fair. I want you guys to go see it before and talk about after what you just experience it for yourself, of course. When I saw it, I did have to think a little. I had to sleep on it because I was not sure. It was the last 15 to 20 minutes, really, of the movie that's really where it got me, where I'm like, did I like that? Did I really like where they went with that? Ultimately, I did like it enough. I think ultimately where my mind is, I think that's where I kind of really thought I would have expected him to go. In a way, after watching it, I feel like, okay, in a way, it makes sense the way they went with Arthur's character. Now, the very ending shot, I don't know how I feel about that particularly, but ultimately, I think this is, especially when you do that one specific scene where it changes. Okay, once you have that happen, you're not going to have it the same. It's not going to be the same way that we thought of the first movie, and I think that kind of for people that felt like, okay, what was the point of this? Well, I mean, whereas you can with the first movie, if you just did there, you could have had different interpretations without having to, because you could think think of him in one way or whatever. You had other things. There's many, interpretations of that, but here they give you a kind of this is for sure. And some people have considered this really trolling and kind of them trying to backtrack on the first movie. I mean, I can understand where people are coming from about that. It's definitely more musically involved, and I never had issue with the musical moments because they do fill a purpose of the story. They feel like it does. I think a lot of people do. I think people will recognize that there's a purpose to these songs in terms of the story and Arthur's thinking, because a lot of the songs are really in his mind throughout this film. It's not like straight out, but where they happen, that's going to be where the biggest thing is. Where they happen, it's going to be probably where it's going to frustrate people, where they see where the musical things happen, especially the ones in his mind. One does happen in a specific scene where you kind of, I like it because I like the song and I like the what they do in that scene, but at the same time I can kind of see where people will be like, really, you're going to cut to that? And that's why I think a lot of people this is what they were afraid of with them doing with musical elements, that it's gonna cut within certain things. But I don't think it's really difficult because I don't think it's like, because some of those musical elements happened in Arthur's head, it doesn't make it feel like it's like High School Musical or anything like that, because that's when they just get up and dance, and it's not, none of that is like dream that actually happened, but people don't acknowledge that it just happened or something like that when you're thinking of a musical that way. I think this is because there's some scenes where they're singing in front of people and they know that they're singing, and then there's the stuff through Arthur's mind. So I it didn't bother me, but I think maybe one really kind of, some will kind of bug people because where it happened. So yeah, but I think I would say that was my, you could say is the biggest gripe, or just how it ends. I think the ending and the way they chose to go, I think it's just really going to be down, is where I think a lot of people feel like it's kind of pointless. Because you think it was going to go one way because the way the trailers are showing. yeah, I get that, especially you wanted to go down this really, like, insane way, but this was kind of what they chose to do is kind of really, risky and, kind of just, something different. And I get that you want to do something different because you don't want to feel like it's a cash grab. You don't want to feel like, and I don't think it's like on the studio part of it, I think it's sure you can, from a studio's perspective, yes, because to me, like, if they don't get Phillips or Phoenix back and they do the sequel anyway, yes, I would say that is a cash grab. Now if you talk about, like, now I think Joaquin got a bigger budget, got more money from doing this one, and I'm assuming Phillips got a good pay, so maybe you can say a little bit, but I think there's more effort here than in terms of the story. In their mind, I think it's just something that, I think it's what Phillips saw. Him and, they all talked about it probably, and they thought this made the most sense. And, like, not all these are going to work. And look, remember the first one, it was still kind of a mixed film anyway. Now, it's getting worse reviews now for this, but still, it was a mix. It wasn't like a beloved film. So I'm not here to say, oh, it ruined this beloved classic. For some, the ending is definitely what's going to ruin this, I think, for a lot of people. And that's why I had a lot of time thinking about why I was sleeping on this, because that ending is definitely a choice they made, and some will take that as hating the fans or just trolling fans, or for people who love the first one. I'm not gonna bash them for that, because I feel like, look, in order for them to go in a different direction, they had to do something like this, and instead of just doing the same exact thing. Now they do certain beats that are the same from the first one, but I think that kind of has to be there realistically, or what's the point, of not going back to that. Lady Gaga, like I said, I think is really good in here. I think some people were expecting more of the, like, typical Harley and Joker in terms of certain things, but I love the way they used her as Quinn, Lee / Harley. I think they did a terrific job. It was again something they made a choice with her, and how how her story is. Now, could you say they could have done a bit more? Like, yes, I think you could have had her more, some more character, a little more. But again, I think her purpose made, when you ultimately see where her purpose is and what she was after, it makes so much more sense to why you don't get more of them together. Now I think there's two scenes they cut. There's a couple scenes they cut out. There's a scene where she's actually dancing on the stairs, and they cut it out. I think someone pointed out that it might have been a spoil. The reason they cut it out might have been a spoiler about the ending of the film. I don't know, but that's just somewhere I read on Twitter, which, who knows. It's just something like I was thinking, okay, if that is true to that, if it was true that it was going to conflict with the ending, that makes sense to cut it. Now, I would love to see that scene, her just dancing on the stairs like him. Maybe could have been another reason could have been where they didn't want to feel like it felt like you're trying to, do the iconic thing from the first one, which I get why to maybe be afraid of them doing the same thing, but I think I would be more of if it caused for a spoiler to what happens. Yeah, I get why you cut it. But in the end, I still think this is worth checking out. I think it's still a solid movie. I'm going to see this again because I can't say that I love it, but I know I like it. But this is definitely one I need to rewatch because I do really like that first one. I think that one's really good, really, but I do appreciate the difference, the what they're trying to do something different here, and they go for it in big ways, and absolutely and that's going to be a love it or hate it thing. And this is definitely going to be more a negative, more disliked. There will be some who like it, but you're going to see more of the discourse on this one, and it's unfortunate, but you know, that's sometimes when you do movies like this and sequels or whatnot, that's going to happen. You're not everything's going to be loved. So, and I appreciate everyone's different opinions on this and just, you know, how they feel. Look, you got to be honest about if you like it or not. You know, it's not about, you know, obviously hating this thing. But I do really appreciate this movie. It was just nice to get to, you know, see them go for it instead of just like sitting on one movie and being like, that's it. I like that they did think there was more to tell, and in a different way. So I do recommend this one. I would give this a 3.5 out of 5. I think because of the last 15 to 20 minutes, I think it's 15 to 20 minutes, but more towards the third act is where it's, I think to me, where it gets really where it's that risky part of ultimately how you feel about it. I think you wanted a little bit more from Lee and Arthur together, a little bit more like some dynamic scenes. But to be fair, the way they use her and how her character is the reason she's there makes much more sense. So that's more of a nitpick. But I think the biggest is going to be some people are going to the musical numbers will frustrate people where they land most likely. So yeah, keep that in mind. But if you can stomach that, I think you still will find enjoyment in here with Joker Folie à Deux. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Joker 2. Let me know what you guys thought of Joker Folie à Deux. Joker 2 down in the comments below. This is Brandon at the Movies signing off. Peace.